There are so many variables that contribute to the Black experience. The state of the African American community is they have made it, or they are making it. Regardless of their circumstance, regardless of their situation, rich, poor, educated, not educated, articulate, stumbles over their words, no matter what, they are making it.
What about African Americans?
Winds are blowing in our direction. This is a season for change.
African Americans are we're the most interesting group of people on the planet, in my opinion. We've been through so much in such a short span of time.
African Americans, I think, are some of the most wonderful people that God ever created. There are people who have shown such resilience and power as they have overcome so many struggles. They've had many obstacles to overcome, but they've done so, and they've done so with great strength, great fortitude, and in a masterful way.
One of the most underrated groups of people in the world. We've had to go through so many different trials and tribulations, yet at the same time, through those trials and tribulations, we've developed a level of resilience that I believe is second to none.
As African Americans, we're real fortunate at this point in history. We've made some great strides in this country. But yet, as far as we've come, we have a tremendous amount of work that still needs to be done.
African Americans are a powerful people. They are a resilient people. They have, for 400 years, suffered, have experienced intentional oppression, intentional acts to suppress their innate ability to think, to discover, and to create. Black people are powerful, they are resilient, they are strong people.
I think we are one of the richest in terms of who we are as a people, what we offer culturally. I love the diversity within our culture. We're a strong, resilient, powerful people. So what is there not to talk about when it comes to being African American?
The state of the African American community is complex. I don't think that we can look at the African American community and say, well, they're this or they're that, or, he's making it, so he's okay. Or, they're illiterate, they're impoverished, they refuse to work, they're just bad.
I believe the state of the African American community is like in a state of flux. We're seeing progress along some lines, and then along others less so. Overall, I think that we're a compassionate group. I think that we're a strong group and working hard to create change. But there's a lot of barriers that are in our way, and there's a lot of inconsistencies that keep us from achieving our full potential.
It's difficult to say what's the state of all African Americans. But it's clear to me from what I see and people I know that, again, a lot of African Americans have been able to advance politically, socially, economically. But yet still there's a still large percentage of African Americans who are still left behind. And I think that somehow or another, the political, the social structure must be very intentional in being inclusive for that.
We have had to fight for years and years for social justice, for equality, to maintain equity in every arena possible. Thank God we are not where we used to be. However, we're not where we need to be. With that said, I would say that really depending on who's in power in our governmental structure actually determines and helps to determine the rate by which we are able to move forward. Obviously, that's not the only area and or reason that we are able to and not able to move forward, but it plays a big role. And because of that, it's sometimes disappointing the perceived level of apathy and real level of apathy that we as a people have when participating in the governmental process. Nonetheless, there are people who work on a daily basis to ensure that the needle continues to move in our favor.
Are we moving forward at the rate that we should be? I'm not sure. I am sure that there are still areas that we need to move forward in. That there still needs to be some equity in terms of in gender. Women should have the same opportunity as men. African American women should receive the same amount of money as men may in the workforce. So yes, we are moving forward. But to say whether or not we're all where we need to be, that's still a big question mark.
In some situations, we're moving backwards, shall I say, or at a standstill at best. Our black-on-black crime is not moving forward. That's going in the wrong direction. But as far as economics and some of the other things that the community is doing, I say absolutely, we're moving forward. We are making advances and strides that we have not seen in times past. I've only been involved with this community for 23 years, and I'm seeing things that I've never seen in my 23 years. And we are positioned to go forward by leaps and bounds.
Every day there are more black entrepreneurs, there are more small businesses being started, companies being started, Fortune 500 companies run by black people. Even recently, the youngest executive producer was a young black girl. So I feel like we're doing a lot right now. I think that we are moving forward.
Even though there's been a little progress, it's not enough progress to bring us where I know we can be as an African American community. I can see that we are in the process now of doing some things a little more enhanced and a little more professional to get where we need to go than we used to do in the past. So yes, I do believe it's a slow process, but I do believe, yes, we are moving out.
The African American community in Battle Creek, I think, is at one of its best places that it's ever been. Not that it doesn't have challenges, not that there aren't changes that are needed to be made, but I see us in a position for doing just that.
African Americans in our community and across the nation, I believe, are moving forward. However, there's like a sort of a parallel of things that are going on. On the one hand, we have like at the micro level, at the granular or individual level, I see African Americans moving with leaps and bounds. You're always seeing where an African American is the first to do a thing, or an African American person is the best at a thing. Recently, we had the first president of the United States, which, unlimited boundaries, at least in terms of perception of what African Americans are capable of. All of that said, I think that at the systems level, when you take into account all of the African Americans that are here in our community and are here in the United States, I think that there's a stagnation or a slowing of progress. And I attribute that to a lot of cultural barriers that continue to exist. I think that modes of economy have conspired to help slow down African Americans as we try to progress in society. And there's other forces that are in place that affect all people in general. But there are some that are definitely focused on oppressing African Americans and keeping them from being the best that they can be.
African Americans are moving forward day by day. When I look at the state of wokeness, every generation is becoming more and more woke. We are realizing that it's not by happenstance that these circumstances have become ours. And we're no longer owning our circumstances, but we are owning our future. And so while it may seem like some people, or while it may seem like a large sum of African Americans are going backwards, and a few are stable, and even a fewer amount are moving forward, there are a group of champions that are deepening their learning, and they're reaching back. They are informing our other brothers and sisters, and inch by inch, centimeter by centimeter, some by leaps and bounds. Others are scooting while others are walking or crawling, but we're moving forward.
That's a complex question, because I think there's been a lot of growth. And I think with growth also comes some setback, right? So, I think we are doing well economically. The unemployment rate, the last I checked, was the lowest since the 70s. So that's huge for us. I love the energy around entrepreneurship, around Black economics, and building our own economic system in terms of spirituality, that we're starting to get reconnected back to what that might look like for us. I do think the answer to that kind of may also depend on region. So you notice that there are certain parts of our country that you tend to see more growth amongst African Americans than in other regions of our country. And what I've noticed is the areas that are thriving the most are areas where you see the most cultural capital, where there's a comfort with who we are, right? I can be who I am. Who I am is celebrated and embraced. And so there's a connection to being supported in your community, right? That we can show up Black, authentically Black, and be able to embrace that. That's sort of, it seems like that's correlated to our ability to grow.
Well, for me, there is no doubt that there has to be some intentional connectedness. As people of color, we have to be connected to those entities in the community, such as the Urban League, such as the NAACP. Those kind of entities that tends to be drum majors for our issues. So I think the way we do that is being more connected to each other in the community, so that we can increase our capacity, so that we can have a greater influence, a greater impact.
There are lots of ways that we can help African Americans move forward. I think one of the best ways is for us to take care of us for us to continue to support each other and not always look to the outside for the answers. I think that the African American community, because of its level of resilience, because of the trials and tribulations that we've had to go through, we kind of, in some ways, lose our confidence in our ability to do the things that we need to do to better ourselves. I see that kind of changing in our community because we have a group of folks that are saying enough is enough and are putting into motion mechanisms and ways and means of us doing things for ourselves. That doesn't mean it always works. That doesn't mean that we're always making the right choices. After all, we're human beings. But at the end of the day, I think that being inside the community, doing things inside our community with ourselves, even though we may not have the resources that the greater community can offer, us doing it for ourselves helps to instill a confidence in our abilities. And all of that said, we do need help from outside of our community to do this, but I don't think that we necessarily need to rely on those outside forces, because those outside forces many times don't take into account the inner strength and skills that we have and we know about and what we are capable of within ourselves and in our community.
Get registered. Stand up for what you want. Sure, it might not pan out like you want. You might not put the person in that you voted for, but at least you had a voice in what was happening.
You know, no one's going to hand us anything. No one's going to give us wealth. No one's going to give us success or education. So we have to take that chance and take that risk to get things done. And I think that's apparent now more than ever. It's apparent in the work that's being done. I think ideally my vision for the Black community looks like, you know, us occupying more land, us, you know, building our own, creating avenues for our kids to succeed by ourselves. Because no one's going to help us. I mean, it's been apparent this entire time. But I think moving forward, that's going to be the idea, just doing for ourselves and being independent.
The provision is available for making those changes. I think that the initiatives of the Urban League and the African American Collaborative are positioned to make this the best times ever for this community.
Honestly, I feel that we are in a very unique position as a culture, because historically we've been brought here and created our own culture here in America. And that looks different than African culture. It looks different than, you know, Canadian American culture. It looks different than, you know, Afro-Latina and Latino culture.
Reiterating the cultural capital, excuse me, and getting back to identity. So what I'm noticing, and I think is one of our struggles, is who are we? And really being connected to what that means. I also think we have to come to a place now where we want to be able to accept that there's a diversity in our culture, right? I think at one point we sort of looked at African American as a one size fits all, right? We assumed that, you know, we were all the same, we all had the same values, we all had the same traditions, and now we're recognizing that even within that, there's so much diversity. So I feel like we need to get connected to identity, and also some healing. So there's a lot of self-doubt, there's tension in our communities, there's confusion about identity and who we are, and there's fear there's a lot of fear in so many ways that's represented. So I think, and a lot of what I like to focus on is the inner parts, right? We can talk about, pick yourself up by the bootstraps and, just get to it. But I think there's a lot of inner work that needs to be done within the African American community.
I love what Dr. Mays would always say. As long as there is a criminal element, I'm a part of it. As long as there is poverty, I'm not rich. So the idea for me is that until we can get everybody at some point living their full potential, we still have a long way to go.
I love being black. I love being African American.